You're the one they turn to, the calm one, the capable one, the one with the answers. And yet, beneath it all, you know there's more available for you. More energy, more clarity, more unshakable presence. Welcome to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. I'm Tracy Tutty. Here, we speak to the part of you that knows leadership isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more fully who you are. So let's begin, shall we?
So as we close out this year, I wanted today's conversation to feel different, quieter, more spacious, like the moment when you turn the last page of a well-lived chapter and you pause just for a breath before you decide what comes next. There's something about this time of year that invites honesty, even if it whispers rather than declares. A soft curiosity about who you've become and who you're no longer willing to be. And that's the energy we're stepping in today. A gentle beginning, a reflective exhale. The kind of conversation that naturally leads into the closing rituals we gift ourselves at year's end. This is episode 217, the return to yourself, leadership when you're no longer who you used to be. And it feels fitting, doesn't it? We're nearing the end of this series, and as often happens near an ending, a deeper beginning starts to make itself known. Today, I want to talk about the moment every leader reaches, not because something's gone wrong, but because something within you has outgrown its original shape. There comes a time when the strategies that made you extraordinary simply stop working. Or maybe they still work, but they take more energy than they used to. Or they technically get the job done, but something about them leaves you feeling a little off, a little unsettled. You can't quite name it, but you can feel it. You know the moment I mean. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't arrive with a big announcement. It's subtle. It's almost polite. It's things like waking up and noticing that you don't want to rush anymore. It's seeing something in your calendar and feeling your body tighten, even though you've done that task 100 times before. It's saying, I'm fine. Well, another part of you quietly whispers, not quite. So I thought it'd be helpful to share a few of the ways my clients describe this shift when it starts to show up for them. And you might recognize yourself in one or two of these. First up, mornings start to feel different. They tell me I don't want to hit the ground running anymore. I want a softer beginning. Not because they lack drive, but because their system just doesn't want to run on urgency the way it used to. Second, their tolerance for misalignment shrinks. A meeting they'd normally breeze through suddenly feels heavy. Or they rewrite an email 3 times, not because they're unsure, but because their body won't let them push through the old way. And thirdly, the armor begins to feel heavier. Clients will say, I can still put on the polished leader face, but it feels like I'm zipping myself into a version of me that doesn't quite fit anymore. And it's important to notice that these aren't the signs of collapse. They're signs of evolution. Your subconscious has already moved. Your biology is already recalibrating. And your identity, well, she's simply catching up. And here's the part we don't always talk about. These moments, the heavier armor, the shrinking tolerance for misalignment, the longing for gentle beginnings. They're often the earliest signs that your leadership identity is evolving. And evolution doesn't always feel comfortable at the start, right? Sometimes it feels unfamiliar. Sometimes it feels like something underneath has shifted before anything above the surface makes sense. And sometimes it feels like you're living a life that technically works, but not effortlessly. And this isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that something's changing. So when you feel yourself evolving beyond the version of leadership that once felt effortless, it's not a failure. It's biology. Your nervous system's no longer wired for leadership driven by overperformance. It's asking for coherence instead, a deeper alignment between who you are now and how you show up in the world. And this is where it can feel confusing, right? Because on paper, everything looks the same. You're doing the work, you're delivering, you're showing up with the same level of professionalism and care. But inside, something's shifted. The fuel that once powered you, that urgency, that responsibility, that being the reliable one, it no longer lands the same way. Your system doesn't want to run on adrenaline or hypervigilance anymore. It wants clarity. It wants steadiness. It wants presence. And here's the part that often catches people off guard. You haven't just trained yourself to run on that old fuel. You've trained your team to expect it too. They're used to your speed. They're used to your availability. They're used to you absorbing pressure before it reaches them. They're used to you stepping in, smoothing the path, filling the gaps, and carrying the invisible load without ever naming it. So when your system starts asking for a different pace, a different quality of energy, it creates a ripple effect. Because your team's been unconsciously calibrated to the way you've always led. And the downstream consequence of that is this. When you slow down, they can feel it. When you shift your pace, they're unsure how to match it. And when you stop rescuing or filling in or forecasting ahead for everyone, it reveals where you've been leaning on you without even realizing it. This isn't a problem. It's data. It's the moment you realize your evolution doesn't just happen inside you, it reorganizes the system around you. And there's another layer here that really gets acknowledged. When you've spent years leading with a certain sharpness under pressure, that clipped tone, the hyper focus, the get it done energy, your team learns to expect that too. Not because you were unkind, but because you were carrying more than anyone ever saw. So when things get a little pressured, they're already bracing for your edge. You walk into a meeting and you can feel it. The slight tightening, the careful choosing of words, the way the room shifts into let's keep everything tight mode. But now that your system doesn't jump into that sharpness as quickly, their bracing can feel confusing. Almost like they're expecting a version of you that isn't showing up anymore. Or like they're waiting for a storm that isn't coming. And because you're perceptive, you feel their bracing too. You feel the hesitation, the micro pauses, the over-explaining. And you start to wonder, what's going on here? Nothing's wrong. It's simply that your identity has evolved faster than their expectations have. And here's the part that often brings the biggest relief. As you recalibrate, your team recalibrates with you because teams don't just follow what you say, they emulate who you are. When you lead from clarity instead of adrenaline, you teach them clarity. When your presence is steady instead of sharp, you teach them steadiness. When you regulate yourself under pressure, you become the quiet evidence that regulation is safe. They stop bracing. They start breathing. They begin to mirror the way you move through challenge. Slower, cleaner, more intentional. Your evolution gives them permission to evolve too. Not by instruction, but by immersion. You're not just leading differently. You're building a team culture that's more resilient, it's more resourceful, and it's more grounded because you are. And this is what leadership evolution looks like in real time. Now, it's not tidy, it's not linear, and it's not just an internal shift. It's the entire ecosystem recalibrating to meet the leader you're becoming. So what does a return to yourself actually look like? It's not a grand declaration. It's not a reinvention. It's a remembering. And I want to speak to that because one of the biggest travesties in the coaching industry is this idea that you're broken and you need to fix something. In my world, there's nothing to fix. You were born whole. You are whole. We're simply recalling the parts that were accidentally discarded along the way. These parts often get buried under expectations the world places on you, the quiet rules about who you need to be, how you should show up, and what leadership is supposed to look like. And I'll pause here for a moment because I want you to notice how that statement of expectations feels in your body. Just take a moment. Really feel it. It feels heavy, huh? And I'm not really a fan of the word should. It belongs to someone else, not to you. Someone else's expectations, someone else's version of success, someone else's idea of what it means to be a good leader. And yet those shoulds shape how many women learned to show up long before they learned who they actually were. So this return, it looks like presence instead of performance. A presence where you're not scanning for potential fires. You're simply here, clear, grounded, awake to the moment you're in. It looks like discernment instead of proving. Not necessarily choosing different work, but choosing how you're being in the work. Choosing the energy you bring into the room. Choosing the pace that aligns with your system. Choosing the version of you that shows up, not the one that gets dragged in by habit. It looks like treating rest as a strategy, not a reward. Understanding that your clarity, your creativity, and your impact come from a nervous system that knows how to rise to the occasion and return to rest. Because nervous system regulation isn't about being calm all the time. That's a misconception. Regulation is the capacity to meet the moment with the energy it requires, then come back to center without getting stuck in the spike. It looks like connection that comes from your humanity, not your armor. Letting people see the real you, the one who leads with steadiness, not pressure, with depth, not demand. And it looks like remembering the qualities that have always been there. The intuition, the clarity, the steady confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. The softness that was never a weakness. The strength that was never about holding everything. When you no longer recognize the woman you used to be, it's not because you're losing something. It's because you're finally safe enough to become the woman you actually are. And from that place, everything sharpens. Your vision, your voice, your boundaries, your leadership becomes cleaner, steadier, more influential, not because you're working harder, but because you're finally aligned with the truth of who you are now. This is the return, not looking back, looking inwards, into a way of leading that honors both your biology and your brilliance. So as we head into the final episode of this year, next week, I want to leave you with this. You're not meant to lead the next era of your life with the same identity that powered the last one. And that's not a loss. It's an evolution. You've changed. Your biology knows it. Your subconscious knows it. Your leadership is asking to be updated to reflect who you are now, not who you had to be. Nothing about this moment is a detour. Nothing about your discomfort is a sign that you've gone off course. This is the natural unfolding of a woman whose internal landscape has shifted long before the world around her is caught up. And as you return to yourself, not back, but inward, you step into a version of leadership that feels truer, it feels steadier, far more sustainable. So next week, we're going to bring all this home because we're going to close out the year together with a conversation that ties every thread that we've explored in this year's series, The Hidden Cost of High Performance. I know, I'm excited for it. Okay, but for now, I want you to know this. You are exactly where you're meant to be. And if today's conversation has you feeling that gentle pull toward reflection, toward honoring what this year asked of you, toward marking the evolution you've lived through quietly and courageously, then I'd love to invite you into your 2025 closing ritual. This is a space where we gather everything you've carried this year, everything you've outgrown, everything you're ready to step into. And we close the year with intention rather than exhaustion. It's a guided experience where you get to meet yourself again, the woman you've become, the wisdom your body has been holding, and the clarity that comes when you finally exhale. And it's going to be just you and me. A sacred, deeply personal space. So if that feels like something your system is whispering yes to, you'll find the details at tracytutty.co.nz/tea with tea. I'd love to share that space with you. For now, I'm sending you lots of love. Bye for now.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If our conversation spoke to you today, could you please take a moment to leave a 5-star review? Your review will help people discover this podcast, and together we can create a world where there's even more love and more laughter. And if you want to hear more from the Project Joyful podcast, just click the subscribe button. Bye for now.